What's up, guys? Welcome back to Fisher Hex. Appreciate you stopping in. Today we're going to talk about two-part dosing, specifically how do you know when it's time to increase the amount that you dose on a daily basis. So let's go and get started. Okay, before we dive into the video, I just want to go over a couple things regarding two-part dosing. Now, the first thing I want to mention is technically three parts. It's calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium. Now, we're not really going to go into magnesium in this video, but understand that it needs to be dosed on a daily, every other day, weekly, or bi-weekly basis to keep the magnesium levels in the appropriate range, so the relationship between calcium and alkalinity is good. Now, with that being said, when it comes to calcium and alkalinity, it needs to be dosed in equal proportions on a daily, every other day, or weekly basis, depending on the type of system you have and the demand of that tank. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so how do you know when you need to increase your calcium and alkalinity amounts that you dose on a daily, every other day, or weekly basis? So we're going to specifically look at my reef tank and some of the things that I noticed. Now, the first thing that I noticed in my reef tank is that the coralline algae will start to turn white and die, and I'll also start seeing more of the glass on the bottom of the tank. Now, this is an indication that the alkalinity level is lower than it should be, and the coralline algae is just dying off because of it. Now, you have to think of everything in the tank, the coral, the coralline algae, all that stuff is fighting for nutrients and resources within the tank, space, and all that kind of stuff. And, there will be a loser in every situation. When Acropora and SPS coral touch each other, usually one will die or one will grow over another one. It's just like that, with the resources in the tank when it comes to calcium alkalinity. I find that the coralline algae is the first thing that will start to die when my alkalinity and calcium levels are just not where they should be. Okay, the next couple things that I noticed within the reef tank involve the coral, specifically growth and polyp extension. Now, a good indication that your water parameters are where they should be is when you start seeing a white ring around Montipora, the whiter tips on Acropora indicating that there is growth going on. Also, polyp extension and how fluffy the coral is will indicate how happy and how stable the environment is for that coral, and it really tells you if the coral is happy with everything that's going on within the reef tank. Now, I will definitely notice that the whiter ring around my Montipora isn't as bright, and also the polyp extension on my Acropora is not as good as it should be, both indicating that the water parameters are not where they should be. Okay, there's one more thing that I'll notice that indicates that my levels are not correct, and that's on my Apex controller. It's going to be the pH of the reef tank. Now, on a daily basis, it usually stays between 8.25 and 8.35, depending on the amount of CO2 in the tank and in the room that the fish tank's in. But when the levels are not where they should be, it usually stays between 8.15 and 8.22. And I don't chase numbers, and I really don't make adjustments based on my pH. But 9 out of 10 times before I even notice that the pH is low, I've already tested the alkalinity and made adjustments to my two-part dosing. But those are all the things that I notice on my reef tank that indicate that the alkalinity and calcium levels are just not where they should be for this system. Okay, moving on. Now that I've noticed that the alkalinity and calcium levels are just not in the appropriate range based on the demand of this reef tank, it's time to pull out the HANA checker and see what my alk level is. Now, 9 out of 10 times I will just test alkalinity, but I recommend if you're just starting off to test both calcium and alkalinity to see what they are within the reef tank. Now, you might be asking yourself, why am I just testing alkalinity? Well, the reality is I dose equal parts of calcium and alkalinity on a daily basis, so if my alkalinity level is in the appropriate range, I can guarantee that my calcium level is as well. Now, my reef tank specifically likes 9.5 to 10 DKH. It doesn't like fluctuations outside of that. I think over time of spoiling my reef tank, I don't know if this is possible, but I have since spoiled my coral to the point where the stability is good and consistent, and I feel that anytime it fluctuates one way or another, they just get completely pissed off, have an attitude, and close up for the day or two. And I don't know if that's legit or if that's possible, but it's just something that I've noticed with this tank. Alright, now I've tested the tank's alkalinity with the HANA checker. It came out to 8.8. Now that's definitely not a big fluctuation between 9.5 and 10, but as I mentioned previously, the tank doesn't even like those little fluctuations. So it's time to go ahead and make the adjustments to get it back to the appropriate level. Now the first thing I'll do is come over to my aquatic log here. I'll go to my profile, and I will pull up my original dosing that I have on the reef tank. Now I keep a diary here of what I'm dosing, the amounts and the time, so I can make adjustments in the future. Now, as you can see here, the last time I made an adjustment was December 3rd. So we're going to go ahead and copy and paste that, which I just did, and brought over to here. Now, as you can see, this is what I was dosing originally. Now, if you guys don't know how I dose, I do the majority of it at night. I'm doing 11 milliliters, for 11 hours straight. and then 1 milliliter throughout the day, and then once the lights go off at 10, I continue to do the 11 milliliters. So that's what I'm dosing currently, and then this is the adjustment that I made. I simply brought it up about 11 milliliters, and we're going to see how that impacts the reef tank over the next 2 weeks. Now, once that's done, I make the adjustment on the Jabo pump, and then once that's all done, I'll come into here and then make the adjustment on my aquatic log where I can change the amount. So I believe it's 175, so we'll come into here and do 175, save, and that is for calcium, and then alkalinity 175, save that. And that keeps me up to date on what's going on for dosing the amount on a daily basis. Now, once the pump is set, I've changed all the numbers to this amount in the dosing pump. I will go ahead and wait until my next water change to test and see what the levels are currently are. Now, since I do a bi-weekly water change of 20 or 30%, I will, and it's usually on Sunday, I'll test Saturday to see what my levels are, to kind of see where they're staying at, because that gives plenty of time for that adjustment to take effect on the reef tank. Okay, before we continue, I just want to show you the measurements that I've had over the last few months to kind of give you guys an idea of where the tank sits at. Now, the Apex actually connects. I just reconnected it to my profile here. I had it disconnected for a little while and didn't realize it, but every day it automatically downloads salinity, pH, and temperature. So this is pretty much on a daily basis for the most part. And as you guys can see, I tested on the 28th and got the 8.8 that I mentioned for alkalinity, and I gotta go ahead and test magnesium just to make an adjustment to make sure it's where it should be, but it should be good. And as you can see, the last time I tested my alkalinity and calcium and magnesium was on the 2nd, and I made that next adjustment on the 3rd, which I actually brought it down because it was a little higher than I wanted it to be. And then now we're just making that a minor adjustment to bring it back up to the 9.5 range. But as you can see, over the last few months, 9.4, it's pretty much 9 for the most part, and that's where the tank really is happy. Is definitely not happy during this day, that's for sure. I had a big burst in growth early on in the year, and it just kind of sucked everything out of the water, so the tank was not happy in May, that's for sure. So let's go ahead and move on to the rest of the video. Okay, let's do a quick recap just to make sure everybody's on the same page before we move on. Now, basically, in the beginning, we noticed that the polyp extension and growth wasn't what it should be. The coral wasn't happy, so we went ahead and tested the alkalinity. It was 8.8, which was a little lower than the tank likes at 9.5 or 10. So went ahead and made a 11 milliliter adjustment increase on the 2-part calcium and alkalinity on the Jabo pump, and then updated the aquatic log. Now we're going to wait 2 weeks and then test a Saturday before the Sunday water change to see what the levels are. Now we're here right now. Let's see hypothetically what we would do next based on the reading. Now say you come back and you test and the alkalinity level is still at 8.8. Well, I would go ahead and increase the amount that you dose by another 11 or 11 to 15 milliliters, and then do your water change as normal. And then continue to wait another 2 weeks and test that Saturday before your next water change to see what the levels are. Now, yes, salt can have different readings of alkalinity and calcium, and I do find that it does throw off because it's not always consistent, but we're just going to look at the 2-part dosing and keep that consistent because that's something we can control. Now, say you waited another 2 weeks and the levels are at 9.5. So I would go ahead and leave it the way it is, wait roughly another month, or wait until I notice that the tank is showing signs that the alkalinity is low based on increased growth of the coral, and then do the same process over and over again. Now that is how I make the adjustments to my reef tank, and that is how I found to be successful over the last year of just dosing this reef tank in general. Well guys, that's about it for this video. I hope you found it to be helpful, somewhat entertaining, and at least gave you some kind of guidance or insight on dosing 2-part for your reef tank. Now I will say for the next build, the 300 gallon, I will not be using 2-part on that. I couldn't even imagine dosing that on a 300 gallon full SPS reef tank, especially when it starts filling out like this one. I couldn't even imagine. Right now I'm going through about a gallon of calcium alkalinity every 20 days, and needless to say, it's a little annoying that I have to keep making it over and over again. I tend to make it in bulk, many jugs at a time, and it's a little pricey. So I'm actually going to be purchasing a very big calcium reactor rated for a 600 gallon full SPS reef tank. So, I'm going to eventually upgrade from the 300. So, it's going to be a while, but I'm definitely going to upgrade eventually to bigger and better things because that's how this hobby is. But I'm going to be purchasing a calcium reactor that will supply all the needs for this new tank and the tank after that. All right. So I'm not going to tell you brand, but we'll get into that when we start building that reef tank. Also, guys, one more thing I want to mention. If you guys haven't tried this aquatic program, please check it out. It's really cool. I've been using it for a little over a year now, and I definitely like it. I'm going to put a link in the description below with a promo code SUCCESS. It's connected to the Fish of Hex brand here, and it'll give you a free month. It is a yearly subscription. I believe it's like $24.99, but you can connect it to your Apex. I have all those videos. There is a playlist on Aquatic Log, and this will allow you to have a free month on me. All right, guys? Well, I appreciate you watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Peace.